Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Developmental Disabilities Awareness Day. Today's event is hosted and sponsored by the Florida Developmental Disabilities Council. I am Valerie Breen, Executive Director. Every year, we hold our DD Day awareness event during legislative session so that legislators, the media, and the general public can learn more about who the Developmental Disabilities Council is and hear directly from Florida citizens representing and living with developmental disabilities. Our goal is to raise awareness about the pressing needs and challenging issues impacting Florida's nearly 500,000 citizens living with developmental disabilities every day. Developmental Disabilities Awareness Day generates awareness and stimulates the momentum for actual, tangible change through the voices of people who live with developmental disabilities and the caregivers and professionals who support them. Today's presenters will focus on the critical need for the legislature to continue to invest in home and community-based services throughout Florida. These services are funded through federal and state Medicaid dollars. They provide a safety net that no insurance company can provide. If properly funded, these services can assist a person in obtaining the care and supports they need to go to work and remain safe and healthy in their home and community. The purpose of investing in home and community-based services is to ensure that people with developmental disabilities are not forced to live in institutional settings, such as nursing homes, intermediate care facilities, and state-run institutions. Why would a person end up living in an institutional setting? It's because the individual and their family do not have the paid and trained supports they need to survive, let alone thrive. Children and adults living at home with significant behavioral and cognitive challenges from their developmental disability need available, knowledgeable, paid staff to ensure safety at home or in a small group home. There is a huge need for more behavioral service providers of all kinds, because without them, the only option is for an individual to be admitted to a crisis behavioral unit in a hospital or behavioral institution at a greater cost to taxpayers, with little to no hope of returning home. The $15 an hour wage secured last year for direct support professionals started in October and is being analyzed for its effectiveness in securing and retaining these essential workers. In the meantime, increased reporting requirements and responsibilities have placed a huge burden on our case managers, who are called support coordinators. These critical professionals are leaving the profession at an alarming rate, and individuals and families are losing their connection to finding services. These are some of the many challenges that face our system of home and community-based services today. Investing in home and community-based services is the lifeline for countless individuals with developmental disabilities and their families to live the life that other Floridians enjoy each day. In thousands of Florida families, there are aging family caregivers who make up the fabric of the volunteer force of family caregiving that in our near future will fade away due to their own health issues or diminishing resilience. They have dedicated their lives to support and secure the future of their family members. We have a responsibility to them and to all persons with developmental disabilities and their families to raise awareness about the need to invest now to ensure a future for sustainable home and community-based services. Today, you will hear from key legislators who support our cause, experts in the field of developmental disabilities, and those with lived experiences. To learn more about our legislative priorities for 2023, visit www.fddc.org/advocacy. Even though today's event is being conducted through our virtual platform, the messages and information shared will be promoted by social media throughout March, which is National Developmental Disabilities Awareness Month. Also, Today's program is being recorded and will be available on demand at our website, fddc.org. You will soon be able to review and share it throughout the year. Our team has worked hard to bring DD Day to you today. Even if you are not here in Tallahassee, you can help us advocate for Floridians with developmental disabilities in your communities. You can raise awareness during March and beyond in your own communities by learning tips and tricks from our Advocacy and Media Toolkit at www.fddc.org. In a moment, our program will begin with my introduction of our first speaker, Kevin Johnson, Chair of the Florida Developmental Disabilities Council. Following Kevin, you will hear from several other important speakers who will enlighten you on our key issues and share personal perspectives. You'll also hear from several legislators who understand the challenges we face and want to help. Please stick around. I'll return at the end of the program to wrap things up. Now it is my pleasure to introduce Kevin Johnson. In addition to serving as chair of the Florida Developmental Disabilities Council, Kevin is the executive director of Magnify, a nonprofit organization that provides residential and community-based supports for persons with developmental disabilities. Kevin will share his frontline experience surrounding the needs and issues facing those living with developmental disabilities and their families every day.
Good morning, and thank you for joining us for Developmental Disabilities Awareness Day. I'm Kevin Johnson, Chair of the Florida Developmental Disabilities Council. I am also the Executive Director of Magnify of Central Florida, a provider of residential, employment, youth transition to work, and life skills programs to individuals with developmental disabilities throughout Central Florida and the communities surrounding Orlando. We are grateful to Governor DeSantis and the Florida legislature for acknowledging and understanding the direct care worker crisis that threatened the safety and well-being of Floridians with developmental disabilities. The investment made to stabilize the system that provides these essential supports was necessary to avoid the collapse of this vital network that supports people with developmental disabilities to be as independent as possible and to prevent costly institutionalization. This was an essential first step to addressing the crisis, and we hope that there will be continued investment in this fragile network to ensure that people with developmental disabilities are not only safe in their homes, but they have the opportunity to thrive in their communities. As Executive Director of Magnify, I met with the challenges that individuals with developmental disabilities and their families face on a daily basis. So many caregivers of people with disabilities are also the primary breadwinners for their families. Without a stable service network to provide care and support for their loved ones, many families have the impossible choice of either providing care or paying their bills. In addition, many families who have been able to provide lifelong care for their adult children with developmental disabilities are reaching the age where they themselves are in need of care and therefore must evaluate options to allow their loved one to continue to be cared for in their own home or another setting. Demand for quality residential options outpaces availability. At Magnify, we have a wait list of over 130 individuals for our residential programs. We cannot grow the infrastructure to meet this demand without adequate investment and a stable workforce. We have made significant strides in assisting job seekers with disabilities to bring their gifts and talents into the workforce. Our youth transition to work programs transform individuals with disabilities, their families, and employers. Programs like Project Search prepare these youth to enter the workforce after high school, and I'm touched by the stories shared with me. At one of our recent fundraising events, I was approached by an employment partner who told me that our job seekers with developmental disabilities were her best employees, and they are essential members of her team who train and onboard her new hires. She said our employment team was essential in helping her to understand the potential there that she may have not seen otherwise. When we take the time to truly get to know each individual, their abilities are revealed. When we match those abilities to needs of employers, magic happens. However, if job seekers who depend on their caregivers to assist them to physically get out of bed and complete activities of daily living to prepare for their workday do not have a stable direct care workforce, this puts their employment and well-being at risk. I am so proud of the work of the Council. Council members from across the state bring diverse perspectives and firsthand knowledge of the challenges and needs of people with developmental disabilities and their families. In turn, our staff are extremely dedicated, hardworking, mission-driven, and truly care about their important work to effect change to benefit all Floridians with developmental disabilities. I believe we truly are the thought leaders on these important issues. We bring together stakeholders and create dialogue. We are at the forefront of proposing solutions and effecting systems change so that people with developmental disabilities and their families are welcomed and supported in our communities. Today is a wonderful opportunity for diverse groups with common interests to share our own platforms, seek consensus, and inform lawmakers on the importance of our work. Thank you for taking time to listen and share your unique perspectives. I hope that you are inspired by our program today and are called to be active citizens, so together we can make Florida the best state possible for people with developmental disabilities to live. Thank you.
And now a message from Sarah Goldman, Chair of the Public Policy Committee for Florida Developmental Disabilities Council.
Hi, my name is Sarah Goldman, and I am a self-advocate on the Florida Developmental Disabilities Council, and I am honored to be talking to you on Developmental Disability Awareness Day today. Whether you are hybrid watching online or you're here in Tallahassee, I want to highlight just how important this day is for our community. And I also want, through sharing part of my advocacy story, to empower you to feel like you can make a difference, no matter if you're a self-advocate, a parent or guardian, or even a provider. I was born with cerebral palsy, which requires me to use a wheelchair and a walker to get around. It also makes my muscles very stiff. Because of this, I need help with activities of daily living, such as showering, dressing, getting in and out of bed, and also requires me to use personal care attendants to help me live independently in my community. I was a full-term birth and was not diagnosed until about 2.5. My parents knew that something was off with me because I wasn't crawling or walking. And when I was diagnosed, doctors told my parents a long list of things that I would never be able to do. But I learned to do all of those things just differently. And I learned a new word that would become my new life motto, and that was adapt. I was mainstreamed in school, but when it was time for transition, that was where I began to face a lot of my challenges. I knew I wanted to go away to college just like all of my friends, but because I needed personal care assistance and my mom was my full-time caregiver, I wasn't sure how I was going to be able to make that work. I applied for Medicaid services, and sure enough, all of my hours requested were denied. I was told that going to college was a convenience and not a necessity. Through fighting through multiple hearings, I was able to get the services that I needed, but every 6 months I had to yet again prove why it was medically necessary for me to be able to live independently in the community. When I turned 21, I aged out of the children's Medicaid system, and on midnight of my 21st birthday, I had nowhere to fall back on for caregiver services because I was on the waiting list for the Agency for Persons with Disabilities waiver. Because I lived away from home, we had to declare a crisis, which luckily ended up giving me the caregiving services I needed to be able to finish college. It was a miracle that I was able to get my services, and it helped me realize that I wanted to be able to give back to others as a social worker. As I transitioned into employment, there were yet again more barriers. I learned that there was income limits for people with disabilities that wanted to maintain full-time employment. I learned that I couldn't earn more than about $26,000 a year, couldn't save money in a savings account, or even have a retirement fund. And even though I had health insurance through my employer, all that covered was about 30 shower visits a year. And a Medicaid waiver was the only way to ensure that I could have personal care assistance full-time. I was told by work incentive planners that I should live in Section 8 housing, that I should maybe apply for food stamps and even work part-time. And I felt defeated. I wanted to do something about it, and so I started doing a lot of research and found out that 46 states had programs for individuals with disabilities to be able to work while also keeping their employment. And after going to the Developmental Disabilities Council, we worked together and other stakeholders to pass the Working People with Disabilities program. The Working People with Disabilities program now allows individuals with disabilities on a Medicaid home and community-based waiver to earn about $55,000 a year to be able to have savings in their savings account and also save for retirement. And though I one day want to see all people with disabilities, regardless of what waiver they're on, or not even being on a waiver, be able to have the opportunity to maintain employment and keep their benefits, we've got a lot more work to do. I want to pass laws for people with disabilities and give voice to our population. People didn't want to see me succeed, and since birth, I was told what I could and couldn't do. I hit walls, faced so many barriers, but I didn't let those affect me. And in life, I believe we can choose to live defeated, or we can use our challenges to help pave the way for others like us. I've learned that I may only be one person, but every person can do something.
And now, a message from Taylor Hatch, Director for the Agency for Persons with Disabilities.
Good morning to all the wonderful and valued stakeholders that are here today. My name is Taylor Hatch, and I have the honor of serving as the Director for the Agency for Persons with Disabilities. We're so appreciative of Governor DeSantis, First Lady Casey DeSantis, and Lieutenant Governor Nunez for all that they do to prioritize Floridians with developmental disabilities in our great state. I also want to thank Senate President Pasadomo, House Speaker Renner, and the legislature for their support of the developmental disabilities community. I'm so appreciative of APD providers for their continued passion and dedication. And thank you to those that are watching for your engagement and your contributions today and all throughout the year to ensure a thriving system of care. We are so thankful for Governor DeSantis and the commitment to Florida families, as evident by today's proclamation declaring March 14th as the Developmental Disability Awareness Day here in Florida. DD Day is an exciting time to bring additional awareness, focus, and empowerment to individuals and families that APD and its partners serve all throughout the year. Today, I'm thrilled to share with you some exciting highlights from Governor DeSantis' Framework for Freedom budget, which includes more than $2 billion earmarked for APD and the families that we serve. The governor's recommended budget includes $79.6 million to support individuals served through the iBudget waiver program. This funding will serve approximately 1,200 individuals to obtain the critical services and supports they need. The governor is also recommending $3.4 million in funding to conduct a pilot program to better serve APD clients that have a co-occurring mental health diagnosis with developmental disability through preventative measures. This funding will support embedding subject matter experts of both developmental disabilities and mental health within mobile response teams in Orange and Broward counties. Investments in this specialized teaming model will ensure informed decision-making and appropriate supports, reducing further trauma and crisis. The governor is also recommending $1.5 million in funding for the one-time project cost associated with the implementation of an incident management system to ensure transparency and accountability within the system of care. This funding will also allow us to mine for best practices identified through trends in the data. And the final budget highlight is $2.1 million in contracted services to engage a vendor to complete over 2,100 licensed group home medication reviews. These reviews will further safeguard quality service delivery for the individuals and the families that we serve. These highlighted investments and more into the system of care will help to ensure that individuals with developmental disabilities and their families have the opportunity to thrive in the great state of Florida. I am thrilled and I am honored to serve on behalf of Floridians with a developmental disability, and I look forward to meeting many of you in the future. Please enjoy Developmental Disabilities Day. And on behalf of myself and APD, thank you so much for all that you do all year long to inform, to advocate, to support, and empower the system of care.
And now, a message from Senate President Kathleen Passidomo.
It's an honor to be with you for Developmental Disabilities Awareness Day. Your advocacy for our fellow Floridians with developmental disabilities, or unique abilities, as we say in the Senate, is so very much appreciated. Last year, our state budget made significant investments in home and community-based care for those in our communities who have unique abilities. We established a recurring dental services program, added funds to increase waiver slots, and made historic investments in the $15 per hour wage for the direct service providers who care for our friends and loved ones with unique abilities. It is only right that the hardworking men and women who care for some of our most vulnerable Floridians earn at least a $15 per hour wage, and we were pleased to authorize that funding years in advance of constitutional minimum wage requirements. As we look ahead to the 2023 legislative session, which begins in less than 2 weeks, we have begun working very hard to plan for our 2023-2024 budget. And I think you will be so pleased with the level of investment the Senate is continuing to dedicate to our most vulnerable. Additionally, this session we are advancing historic school choice legislation that will eliminate the waiting list for education savings accounts for students with unique abilities who receive the Family Empowerment Scholarship. In fact, under this legislation, the money follows the student, and every child in our state would have access to an education savings account. This is an exciting bill that puts all parents in the driver's seat when it comes to directing funding for their child's education. This is a huge benefit for all students, and particularly those with unique abilities. Thank you for the chance to participate in your virtual Developmental Disabilities Awareness Day. I hope to see you in Tallahassee or Naples sometime soon. Thank you.
And now, a message from Robin Bartleman, State Representative, District 103.
Hi, my name is Robin Bartleman, and I'm the State Representative for District 103. I want to welcome you to Developmental Disability Awareness Day here in the Capitol. I am pleased to have this opportunity to speak with you all virtually, and I'm excited to have a group of you visit my office today. For those of you who don't know where District 103 is, I represent Weston, Southwest Ranches, West Pines, West Miramar, a little bit of Davie, and a little bit of Sunrise. I started my career as a teacher for students with emotional behavior disorders, went on to become an assistant principal in Liberty City, where I helped run an ESE center. I was also a school board member for 16 years. I sat on the Children's Services Council, and I've been chair of the Special Needs Advisory Coalition, so I'm very familiar with many of your issues. I was asked to give you some advice here today as you move around the Capitol or make phone calls and send emails. It's really important for you to share your personal stories. Many of us do not know what your needs are. We don't know what it is to be on a med waiver list for years and years and years, or not be able to get the resources you need to lead an independent life. So share those personal stories. Make sure you help us see what we need to do to improve your lives. I also serve on 2 healthcare committees, and I was happy to see in the governor's budget money to take some of you off the med waiver list, and also money to support individuals who have both a developmental disability and a mental health diagnosis. So that's very important, and I will be supporting that funding. Now that I've told you how to advocate, I would like you to help me. I have sponsored House Bill 223 with Senator Chevron Jones in the Senate. And what this bill does, or I should say how it came about, it's all about a little girl named Anna. And this bill came about because I sat in a living room with a group of parents and we were talking about retention. And many of you who are watching this now know that if you have a child with a disability, if they not pass their third grade reading test, they have to be retained. In the pupil progression plan, that retention can occur at kindergarten, first, second, or third grade. It's very traumatic for the student. They have their friends and their peer group. And many parents want to have the ability to retain their child in that ESE pre-K class. So if your child is in a fully funded ESE pre-K class at the age of 4, you now, with consultation with your IEP, have the opportunity to make the decision to retain your child in that pre-K class. If you feel they do not have the prerequisite skills needed to go into kindergarten, and you know that once you get into kindergarten, it's like the train has left that station and it moves quick, then you can make the decision that's best for your child to keep them in that 4-year-old class, and that retention will count in the pupil progression plan. So that will be the only time that child is retained. So it's a very personal, individual decision, but it's just one more tool in the toolbox for you as a parent so that you can make the best decision for your child. So when you're out and about, please advocate for that bill. Again, it has to do with the pupil progression plan, pre-K retention, and it's House Bill 223. I'm going to give you my phone number if you need me, 954-668-3662. I have to say that your organization is amazing. They've already prepped me on all the issues that are important to you, all of the funding issues. So I just want to say thank you very much for everything everyone does out there, and thank you for taking time out of your lives to advocate for individuals in the state of Florida.
And now a message from Dennis Hart, member of the Florida Developmental Disabilities Council.
Hi, my name is Dennis Hart. I'm the Chief of Pediatric Rehabilitation Medicine at Joe DiMaggio Children's Hospital. I take care of patients with developmental disabilities, as well as spinal cord injury, brain injury, and my large population are kids with chronic pain. It's provided me with a lot of experience for my own family. My son Finn is 22. He's one of quadruplets. He has severe autism and significant behavioral issues associated with that, and now is in an intermediate care facility in Broward County. Finn had multiple different kinds of behaviors. One of the problems was that he would tend to elope. Even from the time he was 3 or 4 years old, he would walk the home and check all the doors every morning when he'd get out of bed to see if there was any locks that were undone. And if there was one, he was going to go out and run. He would also tend to kind of attack his siblings, even at that early age. That became a bigger problem as he got older, especially when he became a teenager. He was the biggest of our kids. He got to the point that he was about 6'1", 220 pounds, and my other kids were closer to my size, which is about 5'7", and he would attack all of us, and it affected the family quite a bit. We often had difficulty getting a full night's sleep because he would come into the bedroom in the middle of the night and attack us in our bed. He was a lovely child when he wasn't mad, but when he would go through his behaviors, it was unsafe for the family. And so we were kind of forced to put him into a facility because we couldn't get the kind of care that we needed. With quadruplets alone is a unique family life. You don't know any different, but you take care of 4 kids all at one time is hard. When you add autism into that mix, it becomes harder. And the challenges as they grow up don't get easier. The things that we need to do is not only help them manage the behaviors in the home, but also help the family deal with what they're going through in terms of the trauma that they see. It's a very traumatic event when you're having to wrestle your son to the ground and hold him there. Especially when you've tried everything you can think of to manage that through medications and through therapies, and you still can't win. And you do at times fear for your life. Finn misses us as well. And if he were home, I think he'd be a lot happier. We had to give up some of his happiness for us to be safe. And it's very hard for us to do.
And now a message from Callie Wilson, member of the Florida Developmental Disabilities Council.
So my name's Callie Wilson. I'm a wife, mom, and a professional in the world of both IDD as well as mental health. I have been a director of nursing. I'm board certified in psychiatric and mental health as a nurse. I was also a residential and medical associate executive director at the ARC Tampa Bay. I have 3 amazing children. My daughter Jordan was born in 2003. She was the best baby. Everybody complimented on how quiet and how self-sufficient she was as an infant. She never really cried out for me, which looking back on, I know why. Definitely she's technically nonverbal, but those that are close to her definitely understand what it is she's trying to say and what she's wanting. She's just an absolute, there's a brightness in her that I don't think I see in many people. When I was working with the ARC, we were very fortunate that we didn't have it happen very often, but there were times when, we would collaborate on how to handle crisis situations, and at times it was just, you didn't have a choice but to basically call 911. And so at times, those individuals would end up in the mental health facility and be Baker acted, because there really just was no other option. So after I became an associate executive director there, I was very fortunate that I was taken and interviewed by a psychiatric and mental health crisis unit, and that was here in Trinity, Florida. So I was on the flip side of that Baker Act receiving aspect for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And while obviously it was not the majority of my patient load, we did get those individuals at times. And so for those individuals who come in who also have an intellectual and developmental disability, it almost becomes a safety mechanism. We have to keep these individuals safe because truly at times they just become a target, whether it's manipulation or a target for aggression and things like that. So for those individuals to come into a mental health facility was sometimes just as an employee or a staff member, very defeating. Having been on both sides of the arena, we just have to figure out how to do better. There is no other option, truly, because the individuals that have IDD, and I'm sorry I'm gonna get emotional, but they do not belong in a mental health facility. It's awful. It doesn't do them any good. And there just doesn't seem to be a place for our loved ones to go that is better. And that's so unfortunate because, again, having a daughter who has her behavioral issues where, she's 20 years old, she's taller than I am, she can be a force to reckon with. And when you're trying to struggle and she's kicking you or she's hitting you or punching you, or she's trying to elope and she's standing out on the street and you can't get her to understand that that's not safe, your heart just falls out of your chest because you don't know what to do. I never want to have to make that phone call where I just can't handle her. And I'm very, very fortunate to be surrounded by amazing people, still people who work at the ARC and behavior analysts. And so I'm lucky that I have friends and family that I can call on that would come over. But to think of that day when I may not have a choice, to know that the only option is to potentially have her Baker acted, just is so defeating that I would do just about anything to avoid that, even if it meant potentially harm to myself, my other daughter, because I couldn't live with myself knowing that she was in that environment at all. It's just not okay.
There are 3 keys I want to leave you with today that I believe will help enhance your advocacy skills. The first is to take action. It's easy to say that you want to change the world, and you can, but start small. Writing an email or going to visit your state representative or senator, like we're doing today at Developmental Disabilities Awareness Day, is a great start. It's okay to start small because it builds your confidence for more advocacy. And taking action is better than no action. Unless people are aware of the issues that we're facing, nothing can be done. It is our job to educate and push our issues forward. The second is to find your support. You cannot do this advocacy journey alone. For me, my family, friends, support coordinators, and mentors have been my greatest support. But supports are different for everyone. Maybe for you, it's your friends, your family, teachers, support coordinators, or pastors. But it's critical to have a team of people to encourage you and cheer you on, especially as times get tough. Advocacy isn't a moment, it's a movement. And as they say, Rome wasn't built in a day. The reality is, a lot of the work we're advocating for, the initiatives that we're fighting for in the disability community, aren't going to happen overnight. We're in this for the long haul, which is why it's important to find your people and also take care of yourself too. And the last is to use stories. Your scars, whether they're physical scars or emotional scars, I say they're the things that you've been through, your family's been through, or if you're a provider, the things that your clients have been through. Those make your story. And when you're advocating, your story is your biggest asset. Policymakers can argue facts and dollars, but they can't take a personal story or experience away. So embrace your story and use it. Continue to advocate for the things that you've gone through. By doing this, you will change thousands of lives because you helped pave the way. We have a lot of work to do. And today at Developmental Disability Awareness Day, whether you're advocating for the waitlist campaign, supportive decision-making, or funds to help those with dual diagnosis, and whether you're hybrid watching online and doing virtual meetings with legislators, or you're here in Tallahassee at the Capitol, I hope you now feel empowered and feel like you can make a difference. Because as one of my favorite quotes says, if not us, who? And if not now, when? Thank you.
I'd like to express my sincere appreciation to our speakers and our distinguished legislators who joined us today. And most importantly, I want to thank you for your interest and attention and for taking the time to be part of our virtual event. I hope our program today has been informative, enlightening, and has inspired you to educate others on the challenges and the needs that so many individuals with developmental disabilities and their families are facing today. Remember to make your voices heard with the legislators who represent you and join the other Floridians who face the challenges we talked about today. Visit FDDC.org's Advocacy tab and find talking points, resources, and ways to continue these important conversations. Your legislators want to hear from you. They need to hear from you. Please help them understand our issues and what they must do to ensure the needs of people with developmental disabilities, their families, and their caregivers are met during the year ahead and beyond. Stay healthy, stay safe, and don't forget, it's you who makes the difference.